Hello. As you know, I am Lee Hall, the author of On Their Own Terms, Animal Liberation for the 21st Century, and here it is. And it's at a lower rate today. If you're interested in getting it today, it's $10. So when I'm out and about, it becomes $10, which is a deal, and I think you'll enjoy it and find some things to disagree with, and disagreeing is great because it gets us thinking. So as well as things to agree with. A conversation, a debate. I think we need as much debate and conversation in our movement as we can possibly get. In a good way, in a positive way. But before I go on, I want us all to really make some joyful noise for our wonderful organizer, every year a stalwart for making this happen, and that is Pamela Rice. Pamela Rice. Pamela, where are you?
Over at the Veggie table.
Pamela Rice. You! Thank you, Pamela. This is, speaking of my book, I'm going to say this is the first time I've been speaking at Veggie Pride that this is a crowd-funded work, that I'm here as a crowd-funded presentation. And several people, and I'm going to name them, 4 people by name, have made it possible for me to be here today. I am an independent author and scholar. And there is a website called Patreon, like the patrons of the art, but Patreon has an E in it. And if you go to patreon.com/Lee Hall, you'll find my studio for the art of animal liberation. And that's how I'm able to do my travel. So the people I'd like to mention who have sponsored my presence here today are Bill Drelis in Cleveland, Ohio, Chris Kelly near Dallas, Texas, and in my home state of Pennsylvania, Mauro and Lydia from A to Vegan. I thank my patrons for bringing me here. Thank you. Veggie Pride, the parade and our gathering here, is a time and a place for plant-powered folks to be obvious and out on the streets and a little flamboyant. And it is also a time where we educate, where we converse, where we debate. So there's an educational component, and we are here, you are here. Thank you for being here for this. Your presence today is so important. Let me put in context what your presence, the meaning that all of us are offering by doing a pride parade, by bringing this back to the word pride and the history of pride parades. At the beginning, pride parades were called gay freedom marches, and they honored the resistance to a police raid on the Stonewall Inn, just a few streets away from here in Greenwich Village. So there was a gay bar being raided in June 1969, and a marginalized community stood up and said that they refused to be bullied. And from that moment on, we have had pride parades throughout the world. At the end of the Franco administration, Spain had a pride parade that has been going on ever since. And this year in Spain, in Madrid, they're hosting World Pride, and they expect to have 3 million people in Madrid for World Pride. Yay, World Pride Parade in Madrid. Woo! 3 million people.
I was just one of them.
Now, also very cool is Iceland. They get 1/3 of the population of Iceland at the Reykjavik Pride Parade. Isn't that fantastic? Well, Iceland has about 300,000 people living in it. So when they get 100,000 people at a parade, that's a third of their population. So that's pretty cool too. But it's the meaning of this Pride Parade is still very much also about resistance. You know, in 74 countries in the world, it's illegal not to be straight. Do you know in some of these countries, not being straight can bring the death penalty? Did you know 74 countries, it's illegal not to be straight? So that's the context in which our history begins. And Veggie Pride, well, it started in Paris. In Paris, which has had a gay pride march for many years, they also started a Veggie Pride parade. That started in 2009, and actually it was in 2001. It was in 2001. Ours here started in 2009. And the New York City Veggie Pride Parade was held simultaneously with pride parades held in Prague and in Birmingham, England. So what's it all about? Veggie Pride Parade aims to encourage us to openly affirm our convictions and to open public debate. Debate is so important on the legitimacy of consuming animals. And I want to say today that all living beings, whether we are members of a queer community in terms of gender, or whether we are treated as weird because of our respect for other animals, or whether as members of other than human communities, all beings and all groups on this planet today are unsafe. We are all under attack. This is the context in which our parade and gathering is happening. What do I mean by we're all at risk? Well, humans have already caused mass extinctions. And scientists call the time we are living in the sixth great extinction. And no natural extinction has ever come close to this one in terms of how rapid it's progressing, because this one is human-driven. This poses perhaps the greatest threat to our human lives on Earth, because we are connected to everybody else in the bio community, and you can't pull a thread out of the fabric of life without impacting the entire fabric of life on this Earth. And now comes the environmentally ignorant Trump administration calling the shots, affecting local and regional habitats, our riversides, our wetlands, our estuaries, our borderlands, the global bio-community. What is the remedy for attack? What is the remedy? Our policymakers must focus on basic well-being, beginning by assuring that we are all safe to attain it. But governments so often behave in quite the opposite way. Do you remember what George Carlin said about governments? What did George Carlin tell us about our government?
He doesn't believe a thing that they do or say.
It's a big club and you ain't in it. Political figures routinely are weakening social safety nets and environmental awareness and redirecting resources which ought to be supporting the well-being of human people and other living beings and habitat. We can form a collective demand for basic sustenance for all. We can work to ensure mutual aid, including provisions for universal health and education. We can ensure that those ideas are not derided as snowflake nonsense. The idea, and it's a vegan ideal, of non-exploitation of animals also commits us to human kindness, support for safe places, making sure that hate has no home here, and that empathy knows no borders. News reports that people are being chased down in churches and sanctuaries trigger in me the feeling that I have when I hear that authorities are chasing down the deer in my local refuge, Valley Forge National Historical Park. When authorities think their job is to menace certain groups of humans or other living communities, humans are bullies. And so many humans are being caught in the menacing net. More still live in fear of becoming the next targets. So it's going to take stamina on our part. Thank you, Pamela Rice, and everybody who is here year after year after year. It's going to take stamina to advance any kind of movement for liberation. That said, people may now be willing to understand the intersections of oppression and to dig for their common root. After all, humans wouldn't be treated like animals if we didn't get in the habit of treating animals so meanly. I mentioned extinctions, and I would like to mention before concluding that we do face one more massive crisis on Earth, and we all know what that is: climate change. And you know, that's another human-driven one. And this is not fake news, this is real news. What I'm about to say comes with a citation. An Oxford cancer prevention study, it had, by the way, 55,000 people, subjects being studied. In the EPIC Oxford study is the name of it. Some scientists looked at dietary greenhouse gas emissions in omnivores and the emissions from people in vegan, diet-related emissions from people who are vegan. It was twice as much for the omnivores. And the citation is Peter Scarborough et al. In Climatic Change 2014. That's really significant. The difference between the omnivore and the vegan diet was the omnivore was double the greenhouse gas emissions. So, and it can't be just a matter of switching to cheese, because cheese has a bigger ecological cost actually than eating chickens. In a summertime, I mean, cheese comes from cows, lactating cows, and in the summertime a lactating cow will drink 4 times as much liquid as they produce for the owner. So that's how serious dairy is for climate change. We can't just switch to an ovo-lacto diet and really think that we are solving the problem. Should we switch to fish? That's the greenhouse, that's the energy use equivalent of cows. It's not helping. So how do we save our seacoasts and our estuaries and our wetlands, our beautiful parks and lands along the Hudson River and the Susquehanna River? How do we do it? Go vegan and go vegan and have vegan pride. And I think I'd like to just conclude on this note, because we're talking about pride today, in the history of pride. And so I'm going to leave you with the idea of talking about vegan offerings, because we are offering something generously of ourselves to the public in terms of ethics and in terms of information. I'm no longer using the words vegan options, because I don't really think vegan is an alternative ethically and climate-wise and health-wise. I don't see it as an option. And I have pride in veganism, and that's why now I've started saying vegan offerings. And so I'm just proud of every one of you, as well as grateful to every one of you who is here and giving of your time generously to be here. Thank you.